I'm so excited to talk to you and bring someone who I think is going to bring a lot of value to your world and give you perspective about how different states think about higher education, how higher ed shows up in the lives of citizens, and what the long-term payoff for that can be. The best example of this is there was a recent announcement in Texas that you're going to learn about. And one of the people who's behind a lot of the work that happens in Texas, whether it's at UT Austin or just frankly any university, because they're such a good partner with other institutions, is my guest today, Dr. Harrison Keller, who is the Deputy for Strategy and Policy to the President of UT Austin, Greg Fenves. Harrison, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Bridget. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm
super excited to have you in the house because I've been wanting to get a chance to interview you about a variety of things. But there's something that came up recently that made it even more time sensitive. So there's the recent announcement about the Texas Advance. So for everyone else in the world or outside of Texas, you saw a big announcement a few weeks ago about how students in Texas are going to have a greater opportunity to higher education or to have accessible to higher education. And it specifically came as an announcement that you heard from President Greg Fenves. And so since Harrison is the guy who's in charge of all kinds of things, this is an opportunity for us to hear more about that. And then I want to connect it with some work that UT Austin has been laying the groundwork with for a long time. So Harrison, can you talk about this announcement and kind of, what does this mean and how did we get here?
Sure, absolutely. So we were delighted that our Board of Regents set up a $160 million endowment dedicated to financial aid at UT Austin, and that let us expand our commitment in financial aid. So starting in fall 2020, Texas residents who come to UT Austin who have adjusted gross family incomes of $65,000 or less are going to have a commitment from the university that their tuition will be completely covered for financial aid. And then students up to $125,000 will have a guarantee of at least some financial aid. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to increase predictability for outstanding students so that finances won't be a barrier to them being able to come to UT Austin.
Yeah, this feels different, though, than what we're seeing in other states where you're seeing like a last dollar commitment or you're hearing just a minor reduction or people are talking about free college. This felt significant, especially because we're talking about the income quartile that you're reaching up to.
Right. So that's a good point because our median income in Texas right now is just under $60,000 a year. So we were trying to set the minimum threshold for the advanced commitment so that students from families who have incomes that are just around and even a little bit above the median income for the entire state would be able to get this guarantee, and that's going to address affordability for thousands of students across the state. So some of the guarantees, some of the programs around the country, when you look at them closely, there might only be a few hundred students who are affected. This is going to affect thousands of students at UT Austin. And again, the focus is really trying to provide students with some more predictability about what their costs are going to be.
I think this is huge. It's something that clearly I saw a lot of national press for, a lot of attention. But I saw other states kind of starting to jostle in terms of differentiating kind of, well, how is that different than what we're doing? And, how do we possibly afford that? And I think those are good questions that states should wrestle with. They should be thinking about accountability and thinking about what they need to be doing to better serve students regardless of their socioeconomic background. I love the leadership coming out on this.
Thanks, Bridget. And again, I'd really emphasize predictability. I think as much as we have concerns about affordability in this country, the black box nature of a lot of things around college admissions and financial aid, that's a huge deterrent, we know, especially for first generation students that might just look at the sticker price and think they're not going to be able to afford a university. So we want to try to give that extra layer of predictability to students as well as we can.
Yeah, no, I definitely am. I'm seeing more and more of this about the sensitivity and I think it's a need for predictability, but it's just a kind of how obtuse and difficult it is to navigate for parents and students. And so I love that this is really kind of putting it out there in such a clear way. But I'm also want to point out this didn't happen by accident. So for those of us who worked in state policy, which I want to also just back up for a second and let folks understand that Harrison is his position is, I believe, one of the most unique in the country. There are you're seeing a lot of change in higher ed in terms of there are some people who are like the innovation person at the university. You're seeing an expansion in the student success space, but it's very rare to find someone whose responsibility is to kind of stay focused on strategy and policy, act on behalf of the president, and kind of keep the institution's eyes focused on the prize. And if you could share a little bit about your role, because I don't think there's anyone in the country who's the same.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think I've got one of the best jobs in American higher education, but it is pretty unusual. So the idea behind my job, working on strategy and policy, is to advise and work with the president to help specify where are we trying to take the University of Texas over the next, say, year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And so I describe my job this way of, when things pop up on campus that are urgent, and there are always a ton of them, especially on a campus the size of UT Austin, that can command a lot of the president and provost's attention. And the idea is to have some dedicated capabilities to make sure that we keep our foot on the gas pedal for our big priorities. You don't want to find as a president that you have managed all of the urgent things, but actually not been able to advance the institution. So when Greg Fenves became president at UT Austin, one of the things we talked about and that we've created, and it's been a really exciting ride along the way, is thinking about, well, how do we make sure that we're going to keep advancing the university? How do we make sure we're getting the big things done?
I love this. I think in particular, I heard you one time describe that it was your job to stay out of the room when there was chaos going on.
Yeah, when we have the crisis action team pulled together, when occasionally an incident happens on campus, in a lot of ways, it is my job not to be in that room. It's my job to make sure that we're keeping our focus on those longer range priorities, and not just managing the crisis of the moment.
So this is what I think is it's so smart. And I think if you are watching at home, think about this situation. Whenever there's a crisis at your campus, all the senior leaders are typically pulled in, or all of the kind of the folks who can make the big decisions. The president needs to be able to trust that they have their senior team there. But what does that do? It completely takes their eye off of advancing the ball in their lane. It can be somewhat of a distraction. I mean, most crises are a distraction from, being able to hit our long-term goals. And so the idea that UT Austin is setting itself up to always be advancing on strategy and policy, regardless of what current crisis there is, because there's always going to be a crisis. I think this in itself, the creation of this position, is super innovative. And you should think about this in terms of who's in the, like that, it just occurred to me, that show Designated Survivor? I think you might be the designated survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's smart. Like, not everyone should probably be at the State of the Union. Okay. So anyway, so I think that's pretty interesting. And I think folks should pay attention to that and think about their cabinet, think about when they're in crisis, and then how do you keep advancing? So I think that's great. So the next thing I want to ask you about, though, is what I've been asking about for a while is there's one of the many millions of things that you're advancing in terms of when it comes to strategy, I guess, and policy, is OnRamps. And from my perspective, I think OnRamps is, and I've talked about this before, I think it's like if dual credit was awesome, and if it was actually supercharged to actually be making an impact in not just the lives of students, but in professional development for teachers, and really in the long-term impact for local school districts, and making it so that the doors of UT Austin are open to everyone, and they really feel like the doors maybe are at the Texas border at most, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that I'd love you to talk about OnRamps, because I think the scale of it is important. But for you at home, what I want you to understand is the announcement earlier that we discussed that is about really a significant investment for students at UT Austin, and is really something that, all institutions should hope for a big bet like that from their legislature. that didn't happen by accident. It happens because you have an institution showing up for a long time in advance in the communities around the state. And for policymakers, this feels like it's a natural fit. And so when he talks about OnRamps, think about this as something that's really about the showing up in the lives of citizens and really about the value of higher ed. So
Yeah.
Long intro, but can you share about OnRamps?
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. I mean, and really to put it in the context of our earlier discussion about predictability and affordability. So on our campus, on campuses all over the country, we have students who are just about to step on campus as new freshmen who are excited about what they've achieved in high school. They've won academic awards. They've achieved admission to the university. And then about 6 weeks into the semester, then they're feeling tremendous pressure. Those first grades are coming back, and they may be seeing grades that they've never seen before. And this is something that we take for granted as a rite of passage. But when you look at it more closely, it's not actually the case that we have to take that for granted for all of our students. So we have students who have gotten great academic preparations. They have great preparation in their high schools. They're ready to hit the ground running. Unfortunately, students that go to under-resourced high schools, a lot of first-generation college students, they don't have a lot of opportunities to be able to prepare. So the idea at UT Austin was, well, what if we could get to students earlier? So not just doing the kind of things that we do on campus that are very important in student success programs. If you think about it, a lot of our work in student success ends up being sort of doing triage when students get to campus. So what if we could do a little more primary care? Like what if we could get to those students while they're still in high school, while they've got all the support structure still around them, and give them a chance to recalibrate then. Then the stakes are low. They haven't taken out debt. They're not worried about washing out of their major or washing out of their university. So in 2011, I founded this initiative called OnRamps. And so what we do is we've developed high school courses, and we partner with high schools across the state. We have this year about 380 high schools across the state that we've partnered with. We have more than 1,200 teachers. We bring them to our campus and we train them in content and technology and pedagogy. And they're teaching high school courses that are coached and supported by the university. And then at the same time, we enroll their students in distance education courses that are taught directly by our faculty and instructors of record. So the students are actually enrolled in 2 courses. So a lot of dual credit, think about it as having sort of 1 grade, 1 course that counts for 2 purposes. In our model, in OnRamps, there are actually 2 courses and 2 grades. So a student could get an A in their high school course, but a C in their college course. So what we're trying to do is give students the opportunity to recalibrate to UT Austin expectations, where we've got total quality control around the way those college courses are taught, the way they're graded, the kind of feedback they get. The aim is that when those students step on our campus or anyone else's campus, they should know and we should know that they're ready to do the next thing. And not just because we say so, but because we look. We look at the data every day. We're constantly scanning. We're looking for positive deviance. We're looking for places that the content may not be working as well as it should. And it's working. So we launched in 2011 with 166 students in 1 computer science course. This year, we'll serve more than 40,000 students across the state of Texas. More than half of them first-generation students, more than half of them Hispanic students, and nearly half of them students who qualify for a free reduced price lunch. So this is a much more diverse population than you see in most programs that enable students to earn college credit in high school.
That's super awesome. So especially because we think about, and I think you've done a really great job explaining kind of how personally this would have helped you. And I think about college, I think about those first few terms, it really is about calibration. And, you know, everyone's talking about summer melt, and it's almost like this, it's this second layer of summer melt, this fall melt that you're really combating.
So think about that bait and switch we take for granted. So, you know, I grew up in a property poor school district out in the panhandle of Texas. We didn't have AP. We didn't have any dual credit courses. So when I got off to college, I had no clue about what the expectations were going to be. And it took me about 3 semesters to recalibrate. I remember that first paper I got back had the first D I'd ever seen in my life on it. So this is something that we take for granted, but why? I mean, so the idea is, well, if we could work on that inefficiency, that kind of misalignment of expectations between high schools and colleges, think how much talent we could recapture. Think how much we'd be able to empower students to make informed decisions about what's a good fit for them. And what I'm most excited about now that we're starting to work on in a context of enrollment management is think how much talent we could discover that the conventional measures of success don't pick up. So we know all these students intimately. They make data for us every day. So that's going to help us identify high potential students for highly competitive programs that we might have missed earlier. So the long-term vision for us at UT Austin, for our partner institutions, Texas Tech is a great partner. Now Houston Community College is a great partner, is what if we could eradicate this misalignment of expectations as if it were a disease? What if every student, when they stepped on campus, knew that they were ready to do the next thing? So that's what the vision is. That's the ambitious goal. And we certainly from UT Austin, we can't serve everyone, but we are delighted to partner with other like-minded institutions who share our vision.
Yeah. So if I'm in a state that's not in Texas, and I obviously, and I'm interested in replicating this, how do I link up with OnRamps and learn to possibly be able to see if we can scale it in my state?
Yeah, so just, reach out to us at Austin. We would be delighted, and we've been talking with some institutions in other states that are interested in these kinds of strategies, these sort of next generation concurrent enrollment strategies. We're delighted to share what we've learned, and even to partner with other institutions on curriculum. And so if we think about, we've done tremendous work at Austin and other universities on our course redesign efforts, right? But a lot of these have happened in parallel. So one of the things that's really exciting about our OnRamps network is, for example, we have Texas Tech faculty who've taken half a dozen OnRamps courses. They can tweak and tailor those so they better align with their courses at Tech. But also we can look across the whole network and see like where are students going off track, how are they doing when they matriculate with you versus matriculate with us versus go somewhere else. So there's power in those kinds of facilitated networks that we haven't had before. And so I appreciate your asking about it, because we're at a really exciting point in this initiative.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like that crowdsourcing the ideas, we can crowdsource these problems that are happening, yeah, which is part of one of the goals of the UIA. But I know that you are a part of a lot of different networks, and you, frankly, I think of UT Austin as behaving as almost like a hub for all kinds of networks. Like anyone who wants to connect in the state of Texas with some cutting edge practices, this is the place. And your office is actually the one that, when I hunted around the website, folks should head to. For folks who are watching home, I will link in the comments below. I will link the Twitter for OnRamps, and I think there is a website as well, so I will find that and link it. The last few things, because and we've actually had we have Rupal Shah on here, who you know, and also we had Sekar, our former liaison at Michigan State, in here live from San Diego now. So excited to see them on. I did want to ask you the two final questions I always ask, which are about, one, you have an incredibly busy job in the knowledge economy, all on 24/7. What is a tip that allows you to go home at the end of the day and feel like you can, put it behind you, and you feel like, is there anything that helps you survive in this job and be productive?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it's really important to get out of the office. So I've started to do more and more walking meetings around the campus now. That's not something that I would recommend this time of year in Texas. But in a couple of months, as it cools off, I'll do a lot of meetings sort of out and about on the campus. Makes a huge difference for me.
I think that's a good recommendation if I can bring it up for anyone. And I do see those in other places quite a bit in terms of trying to come up with, especially for ideation and brainstorm, they're really helpful. So the last question is, I know that you travel a lot for work because frequently I'm making you travel.
Right, indeed. Yeah.
Getting you to somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you have a travel hack that allows you to survive? Just trying to.
I've been thinking about this, and so maybe I don't know that this would count as a hack, but honestly, my best recommendation is to I've learned to be more selective about when I travel. So I think it's really important to consider, like, what are the meetings that's really important to be there for. As one of my friends says, if I've got too much status, that's probably a sign that I'm not doing my job as well as I should. And yeah, of course, we're in a number of important partnerships, and it's important to be able to be there and be face to face. But I don't have to be at everything, and I've also got a great team that can represent the university and some of these other partnerships. And so I've had to learn to be more selective. So I see you at the UIA meetings, but unfortunately, that I'm not able to accept all the invitations that we get.
But I would also say, folks at home, again, think about Harrison's position, because one of the challenges I see is that presidents are having to travel too much, and frankly, they can't. And so if they're always on the road, then how can they be advancing the ball in terms of strategy and policy and all kinds of other things at home? Well, Harrison is the deputy president, and he frequently is in most meetings as representing the president. And the power of that, because it's often just kept to the president provost, is that that President Fenves can stay on campus and can actually be fighting the fires and actually handling things and moving them forward. So you help someone else travel less too.
It is a little bit of a tag team there sometimes, but yeah, but that is an excellent point. That having my position in the president's office, reporting to the president, lets us be engaged at a high level in these important partnerships, but also helps us be able to extend our reach, I guess, by being able to participate in a number of different partnerships that add a lot of value for the University of Texas.
Awesome. All right. Well, so folks, I will put information below how you can connect with Harrison's office, with OnRamps, learn a bit more about the Texas Advance announcement. But I also just want to say Harrison is one of the few remaining UIA liaisons from the beginning. He's my ride or die from way back, and the UIA is, we're rounding the bases on year 5, and we just wouldn't have made it here without folks on campuses who have been doing all this extra work for free and helping us be able to share ideas and make sure that we're surfacing the right ones. So thanks to you, Harrison, and for the rest of you. I hope this is one of many interviews that we get to do with Harrison, because I can't wait for next time you to learn some of the other exciting programs at UT Austin. So thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for your leadership on this.